Okay, good morning and welcome to our June 4th, 2024, 9 o'clock board briefing meeting. It is Tuesday. Let the record reflect that we have 4 commissioners present: Commissioner Jordan, Commissioner Kern, Commissioner French, and Commissioner CUNY. Commissioner Waldrop is back on county business, so we will see her. She'll be zooming in this afternoon. And so we'll not be able to make the morning. So we will go ahead and get started, and we have Colin Charbonneau, our public defenders. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys' time. Good morning, everybody. Essentially, our request involves conflict attorneys, and there is currently a cap on the amount we can pay individual attorneys. My understanding is that cap is $50,000. Am I? So I'm sorry. I apologize again. I'm congested. I got on a plane in California and my ears were a little plugged. So, yeah, please let me know. So I can start that again. So essentially, we had
If you were in California, that's not your problem.
It was nice down there, by the way. A lot warmer than here. So we have conflict attorneys, as you guys know. They take the overflow cases from us. They take actual conflicts from us. The individual attorneys, as far as how much they can be compensated from the county, is capped at $50,000. Our ask is essentially to increase that cap to $100,000. There are multiple reasons for that, some of which you guys are already familiar with, but I'm happy to give you the highlights and you can have me expand if you choose to. But essentially, we only have 5 conflict attorneys capable, and when I say capable, that means they're certified under the standards of indigent defense to take certain kinds of cases, specifically talking felony work, either on the juvenile side or on the adult side, from Superior Court. They have to be qualified. They have to have done a number of trials. There's only so many of those folks right there. Part of the problems we're having with, treatment retention also, like way into that. So we currently have 2 folks that are doing the heavy lifting, I would say, from our perspective. So they are taking more cases than other attorneys. They generally say yes when we ask them to take cases. The other 3 take them when they want to, but it's not all that many, which is still helpful. It is, but they're well under that $50,000, so there's no issue. But the 2 folks that are go-tos that take the majority of the cases, they are already capped at the $50,000. We wouldn't be able to assign them any more cases for the rest of the year going forward. And if that happens, it's a huge problem. You have cases that aren't assigned. So that's why we're asking to increase it to 100,000. And again, part of that issue, and you guys know this, is because there aren't that many attorneys capable of doing that work, we're not likely to find anybody else to fill those gaps. We've been trying for years now, and we haven't been able to do it. So that's the issue. Happy to expand on any area or answer any questions you guys have. Let me know what other information you need from me.
A couple of questions I have, so going from 50 to 100 is just to, I guess, who set the cap at 50?
That's a good question. I don't know. I just know it's set at 50. I think it's been there for years and it's never been an issue, and it's never been an issue.
That's not an RCW. It's just
as far as I know, it's not statutory. It's county policy. Is my understanding. And I can look into that further, but that was my take on it.
I just want to make sure that we're not.
I don't believe it's no, would not violate any RCW that I'm aware of.
Okay. And then is it an hourly rate that we pay? Is it how does that?
It's currently, that's another conversation about restructuring how to get paid, but it's currently a flat fee.
Case, right?
It's per case, but it depends on the kind of case. For example, if it's a Class A felony, it's a flat rate up to 20 hours of work. Once you bypass that 20 hours as the private attorney that's taking the conflict case, then it's hourly. And it's $75 an hour after that 20 hours has been worked.
Okay. Just curious kind of what we're at. And so going from 50 to 100 is just to allow a couple of these attorneys to be able to take on more cases.
Correct. They're not within, so
And they follow the caseload standards.
That's where I was going. That's exactly right. So yes, they follow the caseload standards. They follow all of the standards of the indigent defense requirements. Caseload standards being one of them, but they're not close to being there yet.
Okay.
And so that's why we're asking for the increase, because they can then take more for the rest of the year. If they can't, then we don't have a place to set those cases.
and conflict cases go because of a conflict?
Yeah, I'll walk you back through that process. So it could be an actual conflict, right? Let's say there's 3 co-defendants charged with a drive-by shooting. Our office can only handle one of those because there's an actual conflict of interest. CFD then theoretically would handle one. And then the third one would either go to the city, who does some conflicts for us, even on the felony side of things, or send out to one of these 5 attorneys. Of those 5, though, really only 2 are taking our calls at this point. Okay, so that's the general process. And we always go through the same process. So it comes in, if we have overflow, it goes to CFD. CFD would say, nope, sorry, we're full too. Then it comes back and release it out after that.
I don't have any other questions. Commissioner Jordan?
Any idea how much the change would impact the budget over the course of a year? Would this mean a higher budget line for that, for your office, or what's the budgetary impact? And then for this year, would it be absorbed within the current budget?
So my understanding is our budget right now for conflict cases is approximately $300,000 a year. We are currently at about 191, which is high, but not unexpected given the retention recruitment issues we've had. So as soon as we hit our caseload max, they're going to CFD, CFD hits their max, then they go out either to the city or to the conflict council. So this isn't a change in or an ask to change that total amount, although perhaps that needs to be addressed at some point too. This is simply an ask to have 2 of the heavy hitters take more cases because they're the only ones agreeing to do it.
Is the 191, is that what you're at so far in the year?
Yep, that's through basically last week, is my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I mean,
I would anticipate, Colin, that while this line item in your budget is going to go up over the budget, because of your shortfall in public defenders, you'll probably be able to offset those with salary savings. So overall, to Commissioner Jordan's question, your budget, you're not asking for an additional budget, ask this particular line item will go up, but it probably will still net out.
Yeah, thank you. No, I'm not at this point.
any other questions? I think it's just making sure that there's no statutory
I will
limit or
confirm
anything
that.
that, and
That's-
if there's not, then I'm perfectly happy
there-
with it. Yeah, moving forward.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Yes. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
I think we've got a little adjustment that needs to be made in the resolution. It references the prosecuting attorney's office to enter into the agreement. So I think we want to have the public defender's office, I'm assuming.
Sorry.
Is it?
Scott.
On the resolution, I'll connect with you afterwards.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, I edited that a while ago, so that must have been the original draft that made it in and not the revised draft. It's
Tuesday, but it's a
making some of the revised.
Okay, is it on next Tuesday's agenda?
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay. You'll make sure that gets done.
All right.
The whereas says where, Mayor Haskell, County Prosecutor.
All right.
There we go. Thank you
Thanks,
very
everyone.
much. Appreciate it. Okay, then that is going to take us to Mr. Jim Amicio.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a very short item for the board's consideration this morning. It has to do with a request by a property owner in Fire Protection District number 13 to annex his property into the boundaries of the Fire Protection District. And I've asked Rebecca to put on the overhead the map which identifies this particular parcel of property. State law sets up a process where property owners can annex into the boundaries of a fire protection district. There are 2 processes, the election method and the petition method. In this particular case, Mr. Peplinski and his wife filed a petition with the Fire Protection District number 13 to annex their ownership, which is approximately 62 acres, into the boundaries of the Fire Protection District. Upon receipt of the petition, the Fire Protection District Board held a public hearing and they adopted a resolution approving the annexation. Under state statute, once the fire protection district approves the annexation, they must send their approval to the county commissioners. And by law, we are required to hold a public hearing on the petition and the decision of Fire Protection District number 13. So what I have in front of you today or this afternoon is a notice of public hearing where the board will set June 25th at 2:00 p.m. to consider the petition and the recommendation by Fire Protection District number 13 to annex approximately 62 acres within the boundaries of their fire protection district. So it's really a ministerial item that we have to take action on. We've done this previously, and so I have prepared a resolution when the board holds their public hearing to address the nuances in the ordinance. Does the board have any questions with respect to this particular action this afternoon?
What part of the county is that in?
Northeast Fire Protection District 13 and Commissioner Kern's your district, I believe.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions, Madam Chair, that's my presentation. And good
Awesome.
morning.
Okay, thank you. And that's gonna take us to Mike.
Yeah. Ready?
All right, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners, here for introductory purposes. Chief Cooper and Lieutenant Robinson are going to give a presentation on some, on a contract renewal on their programs that they conduct out at the Geiger facility. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Tim.
Okay, well, like I said, this is a renewal for a contract we've had for quite some time out of Geiger. It's for Pioneer Human Services for our SUDS training, substance use disorder services out at Geiger. Right now, it's only out at Geiger. It's a next page, please. Oh, it's a 12-week program, programming filled with evidence-based substance use disorder curriculum. Curriculum includes it's only for sentenced offenders. Meeting Geiger housing eligibility. So that's one of the things that we're struggling with now. There's no classrooms or anything downtown. So this includes 3 2-hour weekly group sessions and 1 monthly individual session for a total of 12 weeks. Referrals to the program go through an assessment that evaluates their dependency of substances, physical, mental, and emotional consequences of their use, motivation to change their substance use patterns, history and use of overall environmental factors when not in custody. So ultimately, assessments help with the clinician guide the individual offenders through programming and rehabilitation needs through group and individual therapy sessions to 12 weeks. So, next page kind of gives us our completion numbers. You see numbers, the 12 weeks is a limiting factor a lot of times on getting people through, is that we don't dictate when they on release dates. So a lot of times once somebody's put into the program, they're either released partway through the time. People learn they're not being sentenced to the full 12 weeks. And so as of today, there's a total of 38 sentenced offenders that would even be eligible for SUDS training out at Geiger today. So I don't know, any questions up to that point on SUDS training specifically?
Just since 12 weeks is a long time for a lot of the offenders that are out there, that are staying that length of time. So you said like, as of today, 38 would be.
I missed the very last part. I'm sorry.
As of
Commissioner.
today, you said 38 would be qualify for that.
Yeah, as of today, this morning, we have 38 sentenced inmates out at Geiger. So out of about 200 inmates, only 38 are sentenced.
And they may not be there for 12 weeks.
And they might not be there 12 weeks. And a lot of times we have no idea when their release date is.
So
Not each one of them would be killed. So it's not all of them having substance use.
Okay.
So that's just giving you a target because of the length of stay that's required for this program. We specifically target the sentenced individuals. That way we can help us guide us through putting the right people in the program.
I guess I think it's a great program. pre-COVID, I went to, I think, a graduation or two out there on it. So I think it's a great program. I'm just curious, is there any way that as we look to renew it, is there a way to then help people that are incarcerated, but then also be able to help them as they transition out?
So that's more of a reentry type program. So right now with my diversion case manager, who also manages the SES program, every sentenced inmate, but like right now, the number's 38. We're trying to do reentry services for that program, for those individuals, because we have the time, we know how long we're gonna have them, we know that we have the ability to sit down with them, book those. So again, this is, I only have one case manager, so it's about managing resources. And so this is kind of a pilot approach since we just started. She was just hired in January. So as far as taking that population and as a reentry component, reentry also includes, such treatment, housing, whatever their barriers happens to be. So it may not all be funded directly with Pioneer money, but we related to just general reentry services. That's what our diversion case manager is working on.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And that's why we're piloting it. We'd actually like to expand it to beyond, again, when we talk about measure 1, we've really taken that approach and doing it for as many of the essential services offenders could. But we want to learn by doing, so we're targeting the sentence population initially.
Great, thank you.
And next page, the renewals is $196,000, a 3% increase from 2023, and it is funded through mental health sales tax.
Mr. Jordan?
Can you remind me, is this voluntary for the sentence folks, or is it something that is often kind of ordered after they've been convicted?
It is oftentimes, not all the time, court ordered, and that's part of the assessment process. Is the offender has to want to be part of that. They have to be willingly participating, and some start out willingly participating and then taper off. So that's part of it, why we lose participants along. If they're not meeting their benchmarks, then they're discharged from the program.
Can you just speak to why you think it's a good program? And I would imagine folks who, I don't know if you have data, but I would imagine people who go through the program would ideally be less likely to reoffend once they're out because they've gotten some help to overcome some of their issues.
Yeah, anytime we have an opportunity to work on cognitive behavioral skills, so whether it's a SUDS program, whether it's breaking barriers, anytime we have the ability to sit down and spend time with people to develop those skills, we see success. So even that's why when we were looking at the measure 1 model, we were really pushing the breaking barriers model because it's a 5-week cognitive behavioral course. SUDS has the additional components of dealing with the addiction issues, but it's also wrapped around cognitive behavioral. It's about understanding yourself, how you relate to yourself, how you relate to others, how you relate to the community, and then how you also understand your triggers and how you also manage yourself in the world around you. So anytime we have the ability to do that for offenders, we see success rates. So statistically, if we can get someone through our SUDS program while they're in custody, they're more likely to have completed the program. If we discharge people and they try to continue such program in the community, then the world's a complicated place, and it oftentimes affects their abilities to get the program. So statistically, whether it's breaking barriers, whether it's a SUDS program, anything that's cognitive behavioral is you start seeing success rates with reentry. Now we're in, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So we're kind of in this crossroads where these worlds collide. So successfully for reentry, to have 12 weeks is a luxury, especially when every jail bed we have right now is premium. Geiger right now is absolutely full. I have 0 beds right now. And so when you have people sitting for 12 weeks going through treatment, it has long-term goals, but as far as having a bed available for today, that's where we have these 2 worlds between the population crisis and the reentry world. They kind of converge and they kind of are in conflict, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, this is one component of wraparound services, so this is one particular track for those that have drug addiction issues as part of it. So it's more of a holistic approach that Jason takes on all these programs. So you're looking for renewal for this niche part that Pioneer provides for us.
Is there any substance that this program is not good for?
No, it's pretty diverse. It's alcohol, it's fentanyl, it's opioid. It's designed to educate people. There's a whole 12-week curriculum, and if anyone's interested, I'll break down the curriculum of how the 12 weeks works. But it makes sense. It's a logical approach to understanding yourself and then understanding how you relate to the world around you. And then what are all these addictions, and then how can you dig yourself out? How do you develop those brain skills to process anger management, coping skills, problem solving skills? So these are all things that we've talked about as far as we want to, as an organization, if we have a community corrections center, really expand on these components, because they do work. We know statistically they do work. It's better than doing nothing. So that's really why this point, or this part of what Mike was saying, this is just part of something bigger, but it's its own component, that adds value. And then the other thing too, if anyone's interested, I do have our 23 program statistics. If anyone, it's just, it's kind of a snapshot of what we're doing.
So what would you say the success rate is in the program?
Well, it depends on how we define success. And so when we talk about programs, I always get asked that question. So that's the first question that I would ask. So is just somebody completing the program a success rate? Well, we can't get everybody through on the first time. And statistically with such treatment, it takes multiple times for the average person to get through it and have it actually get long-term effects. So, statistically, sometimes it can be 4 or 5 trips through such programming before it starts changing. Because you're rewired, because drugs rewire the brain, and you have to rewire the brain back to where it was at. And the world's complicated, and addiction is very complicated. There's a lot of individual factors that come into play that affect somebody's success. Could be relationships. It can, be just their environment that they release into. There's a lot of things that drive addiction and mental health issues.
Thank you.
So I always look at small victories and we try to build on those.
Jason, is there, you mentioned the eligible population. Is there a differentiator between misdemeanors, gross misdemeanors, and felons? Are any of those populations, if they're sentenced and if they have a substance use disorder, are they all eligible to go through this? Okay. And then this mentions, I think the contract mentions it's up to 38 people who can go through here at a time, or 36, something like that.
Right.
If there's less, because I know you have a varying degree of sentence populations and how long their length of stay is, does the amount that we pay, does it fluctuate depending upon the number of people in there?
It's set. It's set.
Flat. So if we have 2 people in there or 36, it's the same price. Okay.
Because you're paying for the instructor. It's gotta be there no matter what. I'm assuming that's part of it, is that.
Right, and those numbers do change quite a bit. They ebb and flow based upon the population. Every once in a while, we will put a pre-sentence person in and communicate with their courts and judges, and we know kind of what the game plan for that person is. So, we're gonna have the time to put them in there.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, so Scott, are you thinking along the lines that we did with supported release per person rate? So that fluctuates, or are you thinking about just a fixed rate, like?
More just an inquiry. I think what Commissioner Cuny said, what Jason confirmed makes sense. I mean, if there's fixed costs, understand, regardless of number of people in there, I understand that's probably not a variable thing that we can negotiate. But if it was, I just wanted to ask the question if there was some variability to it.
And this is on the consent agenda this afternoon. Gina, is that correct?
Is it on this afternoon or next week?
Next Tuesday?
Next Tuesday. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Hello, how are you guys doing today?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Great.
Hey.
We are pleased to have your time to come back with an update. You may recall, we had an opportunity to brief you on the Camas Meadow Park and the Plans Ferry Sports Complex, phase one, our process with progressive design build. And so we have just an updated handful of slides to share with you today as a snapshot of one of those slides from last week, just an overview of the process that we've gone through, the two-phase solicitation process. We originally received a statement of qualifications from 3 different firms. We shortlisted down to 2 firms on April 22nd. The interactive meetings and were conducted on May 9th. The management plans and fees were submitted last week on the 28th. And yesterday, June 3rd, we were able to open the fee, and which are all 4 of our scoring categories that you can see there were individually evaluated. Next slide. And again, the finalists, we had Garco Construction and DCI Engineers. They ended up being our highest scored finalist with a combined score of 92 out of 100. And Skanska and Integris also did a very nice job, went through the process, and their combined score landed at 83 out of 100. Next slide, please. And so our recommendation, which we have scheduled, if our briefing goes well this morning, we have it scheduled for this afternoon on the consent agenda, and we've had a resolution out there waiting for us to have a name recommend to you. And that is the Garco Construction and DCI Engineers. And we're asking that the project be awarded to the highest scoring team. And that will, Scott or myself will be allowed to negotiate, enter into that guaranteed maximum price in the amount of 7.4 million with, in this case, Garco Construction and DCI Engineers as a progressive design build team.
So would it be inappropriate for me to go give him a hug? I mean, it's only been 14 years that we finally get a park on the West Plains.
Yes.
Thank you so much for all your work on this.
You bet.
Great job.
We're really excited to be proceeding, and again, hopefully you heard, we're targeting this fall for a groundbreaking on the West Plains. We want to take advantage of the weather and the timeline in order to try to wrap up in 25. So we're really excited to be able to hit the ground running and make every effort to keep it going. And Julia will be our project manager lead, and she's doing a fantastic job. And so I feel even better knowing that we have her help with these projects. So
Thank you.
yeah,
Good.
happy to answer any questions.
No, I appreciate you coming back, because I know we talked about this last week and we wanted just to get the briefing to have it. So I appreciate that. So Scott.
Thanks for Doug and Julia, their work on this. They've done a great job bringing it through, and Julie Neff prior to Julie as well. I have an opportunity to be part of the scoring team, and it's just this is our 3rd alternative delivery. I think I mentioned that last week, and it's just a really engaging and fascinating process to go through. Good firms that came forward, and excited to see what's in front of us. As I mentioned last week, we're going to have a validation phase that the contractor, the design firm will work through. So we'll have an opportunity to come back in front of the board, probably in that August timeframe, thereabouts.
Yeah.
And then just share with you what the results of that, because they're going to validate what they can deliver in the 7.4 million guaranteed maximum price. And then we'll have an opportunity to talk with you what's in, what wasn't able to be in. Are there betterments that the commissioners are interested in looking at? So just a great job. And also the owner's rep, Turner Townsend Harrier, change their names all the time, who's been really great with us as well. So very appreciative of their help, and it's been a great process.
I think, I know that Josh had an opportunity. I think Mary's been up there too. I mean, Garco is the one that's doing the airport expansion with the Trex project, and they're doing an excellent job. I mean, we just couldn't be happier with them and stuff. And they certainly deliver a good quality project, so.
They're a very reputable contractor. Are they doing the public works?
They are.
Yeah.
The public works. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 Oh,
And this one, just as a procedural matter, we will need to open this one up for comment when we pass it. Because the agenda item that we published did not have a name in there. We
okay,
have not identified that individual.
It's item 5F.
okay.
We had published it as a placeholder, so now that we've identified it, we just need to allow public to comment. If there's anybody.
Thank you. You can remind me again this afternoon. I'm writing it down, but never heard. Okay, very good.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you very much.
Excited. Thank you
Yeah.
guys. Yeah. George.
I too just think Spokane Parks is awesome. Every time I get to go out and recreate on a park or a golf course or something, I'm always grateful that we have such incredible facilities in Spokane. I was talking with a friend recently and just mentioned, that's one of the great things about living here is all the outdoor recreation, everything that we have, so. This team awesome. I'm here to present on some funding recommendations for the Community Development Block Grant Program, so CDBG, as commonly known. So recently you all approved the annual action plan. Within that annual action plan, there were multiple projects that were listed in there. So on the funding overview screen that we have here, it just kind of gives you an outline of the different funding that that was identified. Most importantly, there were 8 projects identified. 4 of those were public service and 4 were capital. So one of the things I wanted to clarify is public service. This is the funding that goes to pay for operations support. This is really our most flexible funding. And then the capital, that's more for acquisition, rehab, public works types projects, etc. One thing that happened when we did the request for proposals is we used a very conservative number. And then a few weeks back, we got our official numbers from HUD, which allowed us to have a little more money on the public services side of things. We're capped at 15% of the total allotment to go towards those activities by HUD. And so what it did was it effectively freed up another $25,000. And so if we can go to the next slide, Rebecca, you'll see the Partners of Inland Northwest. So formerly known as Spokane Valley Partners with the name change. So we were able to get an additional $25,000 to Partners of Inland Northwest. When Chris McKinney came and presented his homeless stack of projects, he mentioned that he had some alternatives. We did an alternative as well with the CDBG funds. And Partners with Inland Northwest was our first alternative. Our second alternative was Greenhouse Food Bank. We had enough funding to be able to do some for Partners. It didn't fulfill their entire request, but we were able to meet with them and ensure that that funding was going to be used in a way that would help benefit residents of the county. So we have those 4 projects that are up there listed at approximately $244,000. SNAP, their financial access. So this is their microenterprise program to help out small businesses. We have Greater Spokane County Meals on Wheels, New Hope Resource Center up north, and then Partners of Inland Northwest. So these are the 4 projects that we'll bring before you all for approval so that we can enter into contract. The contract period for these will be 7/1 of 24 through 6/30 of 25.
Questions? I'm excited to see them. So to see Partners get some additional funding or get some funding because yes, conversation I'd like to have. There's a couple of organizations I'm hearing about that didn't get funding. So I'm excited to see them. And just because as we look at our districts across the county, Partners is one of those that really does a lot out in the valley, and outside the valley area as well, so.
Yeah, and one of the things that I asked staff to do was reach out to partners and see if there was an opportunity for, since the greenhouse, we recognize that that's kind of a gap in our service, our traditional service delivery, them not being funded. So is there a way that partners can help out the greenhouse? And so we've been having conversations with them regarding that. So we feel like this award is also going to be able to help the greenhouse in a direct/indirect way.
So yeah, and if we can connect offline, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, go ahead.
George, just for sequencing for the board, this is just the public service projects. And then your thought on the capital projects, when those would be coming forward.
Yeah, the capital projects will probably be in 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. We're just working out some of the contract forms on those, so. So yeah, this is just half of the CDBG recommendations in this action.
Thank you. And take us to Larry here.
Larry is on his way. I just
Okay.
spoke with him.
Okay, perfect. We can do, is there any miscellaneous items to come before us?
You're filling some time.
Media press release and proclamations.
No?
No.
Okay,
I could fill in some time just to give the board an update on the due diligence process.
So, we talked very briefly about the whole Post Street Bridge, opening and stuff. Have, it's tonight for the Post Street Bridge, but
tonight
the
is.
official ribbon cutting is tomorrow,
It's two separate events.
two separate events,
Tonight
yes.
is the 50th anniversary of
Expo,
Expo. But they're the ones that are doing tonight's event.
okay.
Tomorrow's event is a city event.
So are we collectively, the county, participating in this evening's event?
Yes, I'm speaking tonight at this evening's event.
Okay. So we should be there kind of cheering you on.
If you'd like to be, there was an email that went out asking for people to RSVP to.
Okay, all right,
I don't know who's RSVP'd or not.
yeah, I'll check with Victoria, to find out if she did and stuff. So I'm just trying to figure out is it something that we're going to do or not? Just so that I make sure I don't miss it.
5 o'clock, there was an email, I think Martha Lou sent it out to all the commissioners a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
Asking us to all RSVP.
I just got a confirmation, evidently I'm RSVP.
Okay, very good. So, and I think I'm speaking as the chair of the board, and it was for 2 minutes.
Sure.
So. That's all I know.
You need to go for the speech reading. No, I'm just kidding.
We can try to track down some information about construction for you.
Yes, exactly.
I know some people. I'll make a few calls. I think.
You know a guy?
I'll see what I can get.
There was a contractor was speaking, I thought you'd be speaking tonight or tomorrow, like, there was definitely confusion at my household on who was doing what and all of that, because maybe there was a contract that provided some additional funding that I guess is for tomorrow and not tonight, which is,
See if we can get a hold of him for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So,
Thank you.
so yeah, so I do know that tonight for the 50th anniversary, we are on the list to speak.
Yeah.
For a few minutes. No one is from the county speaking tomorrow. That is a city event for the ribbon cutting.
So, and one other thing. And since they're gonna do the bridge project, it reminds me that there's a policy inside the city that talks about commemorating, who was on the board that, funded the bridge, who built the bridge, who's responsible for tearing it down, all that kind of stuff. And I don't know that we have anything like that here at the county. And I don't know whether it's anything that we really want to do here at the county and stuff. So I'm not campaigning for it. I'm more just making us aware that if there is an interest in pursuing that, because we do have projects that, you know, whether they're overpass projects, whether they're, you know, a variety of different projects that could be memorialized in terms of, you know, giving credit to the people that made that
Oh,
happen.
Do you
You know,
mean like on
like
Monroe
on the
Street?
Monroe
how it's
Street
got
Bridge,
the
yeah.
Plaque,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I mean, it's just a simple little plaque that says, you know, he was alive here, kind of a deal.
Constructed by, I think it lists the mayor, the counts and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, usually the contractor provides it. I mean, the little metal plaque can't be more than $100, $200. It's not a big deal. It's more policy than it is anything else. I don't think it's a cost factor. It's just policy.
No, it's who is providing the funding for the bridge or the overpass. It's like, well, I don't think WashDOT allows that on their jobs.
Okay,
So I mean, it's just if we had a specific county bridge that is fully funded by the county, I think we could probably choose to do that, but.
but I was thinking, you know, and I'm not campaigning for this, so please don't interpret it that way. It's more of just a conversation. The Euclid Bridge would be would have been something that the county built. And is that something that we would want to memorialize or not? But there are other projects that we build. I mean, the road department is replacing bridges all the time. So I just, you know, well, and I guess a good example, you know, the small arms range. I think we've got a plaque out the small arms range, recognizing Board of County Commissioners and the Air Force and all the people that played a role in that.
Do we?
I don't actually know.
I haven't
Yeah,
seen it.
it's inside the door.
I didn't
Yeah,
know that. That's neat.
and stuff. So just trying to, we've never talked about this and stuff. And so if it's something we would want to do, then, you know, maybe we have communications people explore just exactly how that would happen, all that kind of stuff, because it's sitting right there.
Yeah.
And if it's not, then that's fine.
Yeah, sure. Just a couple of quick items. We had a press release last week from the assessor go out about tax notices and tax statements. We'll have something else from the assessor this week. We also had a press release from the prosecutor on Friday. We're working on a press release this Friday with Broadlink and a media advisory for the event that they're holding in South County in Spangle to bring online some new infrastructure that's been enabled by state funding. I know the chair's speaking there at that event. So that should be a good event. It's being at Fire District 3, I believe.
Yeah.
3, yep. So Chief will be there and we'll get your quote from the chair approved for the Broadlink press release. I'll get that circulated. But basically setting us up for, you know, up to 100 million or more in federal funding. And it's a demonstration of the technology, the COW vehicle, communications on wheels technology. Yes, different kind of cow in the South County.
It's working it. Like when you fire them up, they move. That's what I've been told.
Very good.
So we'll have that. And then we're also working on the web side of things with community services. Jessica is working and Martha Lou are going to be working with Justin on a landing page for the opioid settlement funds and how the board has been directing those. We had several news stories, the Islander, the spokesman, I think some local TV picked it up as well. And we also did some outreach to some national media just to let them know how this county is investing those funds. So it'll be a simple page similar to the ARPA page that we had before, letting the community know and anyone who's interested. And then we have a couple other things in the works.
Just before you go on, so that is Friday, that's, I think everyone's gotten invitations to from Broadway. Okay. The showcase. So because that is the project that we worked hard right at the end of the year last year with Commerce to use those funds to make that happen. So this is kind of showcasing that.
This
project.
Friday. Do you know what
Good time.
I think it's 10 to 11.
I don't have it on my calendar.
I just have to speak at it. You were supposed to speak, but then you're not able to be there. That's what I heard.
So we've got our special WASAC meeting.
In the morning. And then
Then-
I gotta run right down
And then
there.
at 11, Al and I have a fire recovery meeting.
Okay, so that's probably why you guys couldn't be there.
Well, and so it wasn't that I wasn't able to speak at it. it was that, it was in Spangle, and Spangle's in your district, not mine, and so I thought it was more appropriate for you to do that than me, because it's in your district.
We were both gonna speak.
Oh, okay,
So I'm speaking as chair of the board.
yeah, okay.
Broadlink. And it is my district, but it also feeds into your district. We're part of the,
Well,
services.
as it turns out, evidently I am gonna be there. In my calendar.
do you guys have a fire meeting?
I could pitch it for you. It's all right.
Yeah, that, so that's a 10, well, how long do you think it's gonna be?
About an hour.
Yeah.
45 minutes. You'll probably speak and then get back up.
Yeah, but you know, if it ended at 11, I could, it's only Spangle, so I could be here in an hour,
And they're gonna have internet.
and they're gonna have internet.
So one important,
So you'll come down and speak then?
I'll come down, support you.
You're happy to. So,
All right.
let's see, the prosecutor's here, so I'll wrap up.
okay, no, go ahead and finish and then.
Okay. The other thing I was just gonna mention, I think we are going to, I'm looking at Martha Lou, explore a proclamation about Adopt a Cat Month. For not this week, but next week. And so we will look for a sponsor if anyone's interested in that. Scraps proclamation.
Happy
Scraps
to.
proclamation on Adopt a Cat.
I'm
going
happy
once.
to. We'll just do it.
Okay, and then I'll have Josh read it.
I didn't realize that there's a cat season.
There is, it's kitten season right
Kitten
now.
season,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
who knew?
Having litters of kittens out there.
So,
So
Commissioner Jordan.
A member of my staff recently adopted a cat from scrap, so we would be happy to help out with that resolution too.
Such a good boy. I love it. Okay.
I better start preparing right now.
Okay. Can't promise we'll have cats there.
Oh, there better be.
Yes.
Cat, you hear that? We want actual cats there. So.
No.
Let's let them wander in the hearing room.
Okay, so, Larry, thank you for joining us today. So we got Larry Haskell next on our agenda. So we,
I brought my chief criminal deputy with me as well.
very good, Preston.
That's the call.
Thank you. Okay, so I will let you take this away.
Okay, well, I know that you received an email regarding the subject matter from Scott Simmons back on May 28th. So in there, there's three subject areas, the two of which I believe we have full agreement on. I would like to make a comment on the third one. The proposal is that because in light of the presentation that we gave the board back in March, we've had some significant discussions, I would call it, with budget and Scott. And I know that HR has been involved as well. But the proposal that's been agreed to is to move the non-reps in the prosecutor's office, which includes all the attorneys. And then I think it's 9 or so non-attorney positions. And then to add 2 new positions entitled Assistant Chief Deputy. One of those will be going to civil for Mr. Anderson to better assist the needs of the now 5-member board that he's had some experience and some challenges with. And then the other for criminal, simply because of the sheer numbers of attorneys that require supervision in the criminal side. Presence really doesn't have a moment to spare anywhere on any day. So I believe we're in agreement with those. Where we do need to do some more work. Originally, when we had talked to budget, what we intend ultimately is for the grid and the attorney ones to change from the 260 that it is to 320. But that's a discussion for later. The proposal that we had received in September of 2023 from HR was that a fall space of step 6 was appropriate. That's now been adjusted downward to step 3. I would ask for approval at step 6, due to well, first of all, the de minimis amount of money that the difference between 3 and 6 represents. I have 6 lawyers in there that are attorney-ones. So we're not talking about a crowd of people or anything like that. And that was what we've been planning ever since we met with the director and Mr. Lokoff back in September of 2023. So that the step 3 is a kind of a new version that we had not been prepared for. And so that's the only area that we haven't agreed on. And again, there'll be further discussions on it in any case. But I would ask the board approve at a minimum today the other 2. The change in the work week from 37.5 to 40 hours for non-reps, and add the 2 assistant chief deputy positions, just to be able to more equally, equitably share the workload that the current chiefs have. It's crushing.
It's so, and I know that there's gonna be questions. I just want to add a couple of things. The request for the chief positions isn't 2 new FTEs. It's converting 2 existing attorney 3s. So it's a more diminished cost.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, again, it's reflective with changing times and changing needs. You know, I had numbers pulled for our staffing 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And we always had 2 chiefs. Right now, there's just a lot going on. On the criminal division, when fully staffed, I have 52 full-time employees under me. And so it'd be very much assistive if we could, you know, incentivize that. And there'll be more discussions with HR regarding the ability to do lead pay and things that we have to try to incentivize supervisors to take that role. And you know, and how we described this with Larry and with the sheriff and others that we've talked about, you know, we're in a situation, and like what we described previously is we're not, you know, on the bow of the ship saying there's the iceberg. We've already hit the iceberg. The question right now is, you know, what kind of watertight doors are we going to be able to deploy, and can we get the ship back to port? And so it's, you know, these are measures that in the short term are going to really infuse us, hopefully, with the ability to attract and retain individuals. I believe at the end of next week, we're going to be at 11 vacancies on the attorney side, 8 of them on the criminal side. So my criminal DPAs are getting crushed with these caseloads. But also, I mean, we have to keep pursuing cases. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So with those 8 vacancies, and they're all in felonies, you know, with domestic violence, I've got a vacancy in major crimes. And so we're doing our best right now, but our hope is that if we can get this done, we'll be able to hopefully attract applicants right around the bar passage time. So the summer bar exam is the end of July. They do have to take the bar this year. And so our hope is that we could kind of be in the mix to compete with others. This doesn't put us on par with them, but it makes us more attractive than we currently are. So that would be a huge help, at least for 2024.
So Josh, you had your question.
Yeah, so it's just, you're gonna promote individuals up into those assistant, and then the positions that they are leaving will be eliminated.
Essentially, yeah.
Okay.
The positions themselves will be new in that they have not previously existed in our office. So the role will kind of be taking a couple of senior attorneys who are already there. You know, it's likely that we'll be promoting from within into those positions. So they'll be taking kind of their current caseload and then adding some administrative and other stuff on top of that. And so, you know, creating that position description will be new, but the FTE portion will simply be kind of adding, you know, an incentive or some additional pay based on the additional duties and tasks that whoever is chosen to be promoted will be assigned.
Help me understand, as my interpretation of what you're saying is that you have staff that are being overworked because of the load in the office. We're going to provide a financial incentive for somebody to take on the supervisory role. But they're still overworked. So how do you address that without getting more capacity?
Well, that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to slowly move this wage scale up so that we attract applicants. We have, I could work the percentage for you, but more than 10%, maybe 15% of our attorney staff, criminal side now especially, that we're down. So we're working, understaffed right now. So if we can get staffed up per person, the caseloads will go down.
So you have positions that are not filled. That's where you're trying to pick up the additional capacity. Okay, I get it. Thank you.
Preston just said 11 positions.
So we're down 8 on the criminal side, so with those caseloads, and it is gonna be a discussion for the future though, in terms of staffing, because for FTEs. Because as a prosecutor's office, and the analogy I keep using, right, it's like a hopper, right? And the prosecutor's office is a funnel. So the more every department, every agency expands, the West Plains is exploding in terms of growth and population and additions to their police force as is needed, but we still handle all of those felonies. And so right now we don't have a great mechanism for, well, how many full-time attorneys do we have per, police officer on the street? So that's the situation that we're in right now, is we're about the same staffing level attorney-wise as we were 10 years ago on the criminal side. And so our population has grown, our crime has grown, our crime has changed. But what we have internally is, if we could fill these 8 positions, that would help immensely. But that discussion on FTEs is going to have to continue. As it relates to the chief positions, we have individuals in the office that we're leaning on constantly. And to already do a lot of these things, they're just not getting paid for it. So that's the position that we're in.
Larry and I have been chatting quite a bit last couple weeks, and he, as a separate elected, has the ability to determine his staffing, hours, all that sort of stuff. So really what the board's contemplation is the budget impact on this. And so we've been working with through HR and budget and Larry working with just some range estimates of what this would be. What I've shared with the board, and this doesn't include the additional non-repped, non-attorneys, because we were looking at just the attorney pieces of it. But for this year is the impact is estimated to be, if it's effective July 1, so just split the year in half, it's estimated to be up to, around $350,000. And so double that for an annual basis. So the remaining thing that Larry had mentioned is his team working with HR to finalize the market comp assessment for the attorney ones, which step, and that's work that's in process right now. So we just want to make sure that we're harmonizing the data that HR is looking at and the prosecutor's office is looking at to make sure we get to a good conclusion with that. But what I've given you for numbers is about the estimate of what it would cost annually. We've got to factor in I think you mentioned, Larry, there might be 9 others.
It's 9.
9 others that are non-repped, non-attorneys that are not in those numbers. So there'll be some additional impact. So let's just, for sake of argument, it's 400,000 for the rest of this year and 800,000 annually. That's about the budget impact that we're probably looking at. And those amounts, we don't have budget contemplated right now, so it's likely going to have to be a reserve contemplation. I know one of the commissioners that asked me is, can the prosecutor's office absorb the increase for the rest of this year? Reminder that the board did, and part of the budget process, did take vacancy savings in a lot of departments. So it may not be able to be absorbed because of that, because there probably was a contemplation of up to 10 positions, and I don't know the exact number. So it's still likely going to be a budget impact this year, which will have to be a reserve adjustment and or a use of reserves, and would have to come back through a budget amendment later in the year when we get to that point.
And I don't know what the current department surplus is as we sit here right now, but we've been short all year, and I don't think we had any particular large payouts due to retirements at the end of 2023. So it should be a pretty accurate number.
Yeah. and I think, as Larry and I talked last week too, as expert witness, costs are also going up, so that's a consideration that we'll have to fold in when we get to a budget amendment time.
And as the board knows, that's something that we really can't predict. You don't know who is gonna commit what crime and be discovered and then eventually be prosecuted, and what the language specialists may need. You know, some of them are, you know, if you're talking about Spanish translators, or you're talking about, you know, Eastern Europe, that sort of thing, they're pretty common. You get to some of the other languages, they're less and less common, harder to get and more expensive when we get them. And one of the trials was very lengthy, and it was very expensive. So it's just one of those uncontrollable costs, but it's constitutionally mandated wherever it comes from.
Commissioner Jordan?
Well, I just want to say, Prosecutor Haskell, you mentioned the new 5-member board. In speaking for myself, I've tried to make Chris Anderson's life as easy as possible. So if there's any challenges, it must be the other 4, just for the record. But just wanted to ask Ashley, perhaps, I appreciate the information on kind of the cost of this proposal. Are there any other implications in other offices that we might want to be aware of? Just curious about that piece, but thanks for bringing this forward and letting us know what's going on in the office.
Yeah, so from a 37.5 to a 40-hour work week, that can be done based on the office needs. So we do have other attorney groups in Counsel for Defense, which is non-rep, and then Public Defenders, which is rep. Just because the prosecutor's office moves their attorneys to a 40, that does not mean that through equal work for equal pay, we're required to amend the hours for those other offices. In the event that they would like to do that, it would be a similar process where they would look at their budget, determine if the workload requires that, and likely have conversations with the board if additional funding is needed. From a step perspective, Counsel for Defense being non-rep, this does impact Counsel for Defense. So in the event that the Attorney 1 position has a false bottom added to it, which is what we're looking at doing, that would impact Counsel for Defense. They currently don't, I don't believe, I just looked the other day, I'm pretty sure they don't have any Attorney 1 positions filled right now. They're all Attorney 2s. So this doesn't have a direct impact on Counsel for Defense today. But in the future, if they were to hire an Attorney 1, then that position would have the same range that the prosecutor's office position would have. We would do that because for equal work for equal pay, Attorney 1s have this shared class spec and they're non-rep. The Public Defender's office would negotiate that as part of their contract when that contract negotiation opens again. Or in the event that there needed to be, the county and the bargaining group wanted to have a conversation before that, there could be discussions around MOU or maybe opening a contract earlier. Lots of different varieties could be available. And so under equal work for equal pay for those non-reps, we would need to look at the Attorney 1s for non-reps. But when it comes to the rep groups, we would negotiate that.
And just a clarification, does the 300 and something thousand, Scott, that you mentioned, does that include the step issue? Or is that just referring to the hours and the new positions?
I gave a high end of the range that would include all 3 of the things that Larry had talked about.
All right.
And actually, to clarify, CFD doesn't have Attorney 1s because they don't do any district court work, so it wouldn't impact CFD in any way.
Perfect. Yeah, I didn't think I saw it on their org chart, but thank you for that clarification. It's just Attorney 2.
Thank you.
So what, where are we at then if we have, I mean, you're calling it a false bottom of 3 versus 6 for a new attorney?
So right now, Ashley's team is working with Larry's team to basically harmonize that last piece of it. So hopefully by the end of this week, we'll have something finalized with that. That's just an action that can be worked out with both of them. The budget impact is really what the awareness for the board is. And that's what I gave you, includes the higher end of that. So it could be up to that 400,000 if we also look at by looking at the non-rep to non-attorneys as well.
Okay, because I just know, again, I was talking to commissioners over at the last board meeting, and you know, like Yakima again, I think they're starting at 80. You know, so it's, I mean, you know, and I don't know how many public defenders were down, so we're 11 prosecutors.
And I'm not sure on that number. I believe they are down and I think they're losing another one or two here soon.
Yeah, I mean,
When I,
'cause
when I
ours-
met with Colin maybe a month ago, I wanna say he said 6, maybe? I think that's the number that sticks in my.
Low, yeah, I mean, I think it was
was-
lower than
yeah,
what the prosecutors are, as I recall.
so I'm just concerned that we are at such a low salary rate that we're not getting attorneys in to get our cases through, which costs, you know, Mike on the jail. I'm assuming some people are sitting in jail longer because we're not getting processed through. I mean, it's a cost that we just are incurring. We're not, I mean, this is one of those that we can't really control. I mean, because if we can't get attorneys in, we can't get people prosecuted. So it's like then everything backs up and you have to make decisions that affect the safety of our community, which I don't want to have happen.
Yeah, the main drivers of the need for prosecutors involve obviously law enforcement and what are the types and numbers of crimes that are being committed in the community. The more serious and complex the case, the more involvement there's gonna be, more time and effort and attorney hours it's gonna take. And we used to try to keep major crimes, for instance, half in 40. So we would distribute the cases among the major crimes prosecutors to kind of keep them roughly, you know, somebody bumps up, they're not gonna get any till they resolve some. But Preston has a list here of what our current major crimes, the most significant issues in the community in terms of the loss of life or damage to property and that sort of thing. Go ahead.
Well, many of these attorneys are well over 50, well over 60. They're carrying, you know, the weekend assaults, the knifing, the stabbings, the shootings, the murders that all happen in addition to that. And right now we've got a really great team of people in major crimes. They're down an attorney as well, and we're trying to deflect. We're losing one of our vacancies. We're losing an attorney to a neighboring county, and I don't have a body to replace that attorney with. So we're taking her 50+ cases and divvying them up to my major crimes attorneys, which is going to add another 5 or 10 domestic violence felony cases to them as well. So everybody's really feeling it. My property team, property crime, drug crimes, they're well over 100. When in other counties, you know, if they go somewhere else, for instance, it's a much more generous work-life balance. I spoke to a felony DV prosecutor in a neighboring county. It was 30 cases, 34 rather, as the number that they gave. My felony DV folks are running 60, 70 plus at any given time. And those are your second assaults, your strangulations, your domestic violence homicides. And so we're doubling people up on their workload, and we're just not seeing it. You know, it's hard to recruit into that environment when we are already starting out so low. Then property and drugs, I've got newer attorneys that are 130 cases plus, which is completely untenable. But if we can get bodies in there, it'll help for now. And then it'll be, you know, a discussion moving forward in the years to come as to how we fund policing and criminal justice. But for the short term, we need to get them in the door so we could start training them and moving them up. Because what we do really well right now is we train prosecutors for other counties. We got folks start out here, we train them, and then they go somewhere else to make more money. So that's the position that we're in right now.
Oh, it's good thing you showed up. I just was asking. How many attorneys are you down in the public defender's office?
We've just got 2 hires. So I think we are down 5 or 6 would be my latest calculation.
And how long have those been vacant?
Well, it's constantly moving, so I don't know. I've probably been down that many, at least 6 months, I would say at this point, maybe more. Yeah.
Okay. And since this is all non-rep, it can just happen as an HR issue, just it's the budget side of it that we need to give the head nods that willing to use whatever means we need to make it happen.
As far as that goes, I think for the 40 hours, we'd probably be looking to implement this on June 22nd, which is the new pay date that's the start of the pay period for the first paycheck in July, with the shift on leg pay that we just did. And then, of course, getting the assistant chiefs, get the description and everything set up, position numbers, et cetera, as quickly as possible. And then hopefully finish up on whatever we need to on attorney ones. But, obviously our budget, I think, we have been down for a while, so, we don't expect to be back asking for more money next month or the month after, but come, fall, winter, that may be when we start to look at things. And then, as Scott mentioned, there are some intangibles there with interpreter costs and expert witnesses, depending on what cases end up going to trial and et cetera.
Which happens.
Yeah, and that's, nobody has any control over that,
So
not
on-
gonna base charging decisions on things like that, so.
So then on the step placement, I mean, when we say a false bottom, do we just need to change where instead of false bottom, just reset the placement?
Yep, so the way that works is we analyze the bottom step, right, based on the philosophy we've been using. We'll look at what that is based on the market, so other counties as well as some of our local competitors, like the AG's office, the city of Spokane. We'll look at that bottom step and look at the percentage that we've been using for what we set that bottom step at. And then that will determine where that new step is. And so basically it's false bottom, meaning if it's above 1, 2, 3, whatever that is, we basically just say this is the new bottom of that hiring step. And so we would hire people in there. And then for policy, we also look at anybody who's in the attorney one position that's below that new bottom step. And then there's policy that dictates what they would move to, so that we ensure that we're still keeping equity within experience and people in the range.
And it sounds like you've already done a lot of that work. So it shouldn't take us that long I was hoping to have this done by graduation. We're beyond graduation. So now the next thing is when the bar results come out, I just want to make sure we can get there so we can get people in the door. Because I think the end of July, is that when?
So the bar exams are last week of July. And that's, as Larry said, we've been coordinating with HR and with Scott on where we've got to be. And I get there's a process in terms of what that step looks like, but we need to be looking at the numbers that we're competing with.
Yeah.
And so when the Yakima's at 80, Kootenai County's at 80 plus, all these other surrounding counties are at 80 plus, we have to come in somewhere over that $70,000 mark for it to even be competitive, because we're inviting people to come work here and work twice as hard as they do anywhere else. And that's a tough sell. Our community helps in that we're a larger city and folks, I think, want to be here. So if we can incentivize at least, one part of it, then we're going to do a lot better.
So a lot of the work that we're talking about will be behind the scenes with prosecutors, HR, budget, payroll, all that sort of stuff. So again, just the knowledge for the board that later in the year, when the prosecutor's office is getting to the point of likely exceeding the budget, there will be a budget amendment in that range that I've mentioned, about 400,000. That'll be a rough number. We'll work on firming up that number too, but I think that's a pretty good number for now.
I'm just hoping sooner than later. So that's all from my perspective. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, no, I'm excited. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
That's kind of our miscellaneous. Is there any other miscellaneous to come before board?
So I was starting to give an overview of where we're at with the Monroe Court Building due diligence process. We have been with a number of folks, facilities and budget, and our real estate folks been looking at the building. We've got firms on board that are evaluating the structural, HVAC, mechanical, plumbing, building envelope, environmental. That stuff's moving forward fairly well. We're also evaluating all the leases to understand what it is that we are stepping into. And we are also understanding whether there's any sort of easements and other things on the building. So we're moving forward pretty well. We've got, I think we're about close to 60 days into the due diligence period already. That's a 90-day period. So about the first part of July is where we have to make a decision. Are we and the board comfortable with what we've determined, or do we need to extend another 60 days? We have that flexibility in the purchase sale agreement. So that is moving forward. We're doing a pretty good job of looking under all the rocks and getting in there and doing measurements of it. We're getting all of the floor layouts into AutoCAD, so we understand kind of what the actual occupancy of the building, what the vacancy of the building is. So process is moving forward well. Just want to let the board know how that is progressing.
Yeah, it looks like we have an executive session that I didn't know about. I'm like, I've got somewhere else to be here soon. And I'm
10 minutes.
told we were doing executive session, so, okay.
So this is under pending potential litigation pursuant to RCW 4230-110-1I. This will involve the board, Scott Simmons, myself, Kyle Tuig, Matt Zarakor, Matt Koza, and Megan Clark, outside counsel on these matters. It will last approximately 10 minutes and no action needed.
Okay, we are gonna go into executive session for 10 minutes. It's 10:17. So I think I'll take just a couple of minutes, so we'll say 10:20 and we'll be until 10:30. Since no action is anticipated, we will then adjourn for the day after that.